welcome Francesca Trotman to the show. Thanks for joining us, Francesca. How you doing?
Good, thanks. How are you?
We're fantastic. Oh, and Dalton's got his moonlighting. Look at this.
Gotta get my lighting going here. I can't let Todd be the only one.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
Yeah, so
glad to chat with you.
Francesca's joining us from Mozambique and is the founder of lovetheoceans.org and was kind enough to reach out to us to spend some time telling us about what it's like living in Mozambique, how she started her foundation, and also she's an underwater photographer, so we're going to actually talk underwater photography as well. So why don't you start out, Francesca, and just give us a little background about yourself and how you got into diving and how you made your way to Mozambique.
So, long story short, I was always obsessed with like sharks. Other people liked dogs growing up and normal animals, and then I was just a weird kid drawing sharks and everything. And my mum took me to the London Aquarium for my 8th birthday. So from then on, like I was pressed up against the shark tank like a weird little kid, and the dude that was in the shark tank cleaning the shark tank, he actually got one of the teeth that had been shed by one of the sharks, and I kept it in a box for like 5 years, and that was a pretty good indicator that I really liked sharks. And every time someone came over, I'd be like, look at my shark's tooth, and everyone else was like, what? Why is this weird little kid showing me a shark's tooth? So then I learned to scuba dive when I was 13, and then just like progressed through the kind of steps with scuba. I started with PADI and continued. And then I basically, my teenage years was pretty much like Jacques Cousteau and David Attenborough, Sylvia Earle, those kind of nice. People just devouring that kind of like knowledge and documentaries and stuff. And then went to uni and did marine biology. So I didn't really look at it that much. I think parents wanted me to like research courses and stuff. And I was just like, well, I like underwater things and marine biology is underwater. So we're going to do that.
That's what we're doing.
So I did that, and then while I was at uni, I did my dive masters, and then it kind of just evolved from there.
So where did you study marine biology?
I was at University of Southampton in the UK.
Okay, right on.
Yeah. So we had the National Oceanographic Centre there. So that's where I started my masters, and that's what brought me to Mozambique.
And now, did you have a particular, I'm assuming it's sharks is what your focus is under marine biology, but is that accurate? Was it, is that your specialty?
So that was definitely what got me into marine biology, and it was definitely what drove me through the degree. Like it was, my marine vets module was my favorite module because that was where we covered off sharks a lot. And when I did my master's, my thesis was on the shark fin trade in Mozambique. And that kind of like opened up a different kind of area for me because I actually found the socioeconomic interaction between like the shark fin trade, what was driving it, the demand for it, kind of the ins and outs of that, I actually found really interesting. And then from there, I've kind of diversified. So now it's really difficult to say what I would specialize in now, because now I have to do, I still find the shark fin stuff the most interesting and megafauna projects the most interesting. But I do really love humpback whales, and that's one of the areas of research that we do. And just yesterday I was geeking out on like coral reef papers and reading new science on coral reefs. So it varies day to day. One day I'm like, oh, I'm gonna just do coral reefs and I'll do a PhD on that. And then I'm like, no, I love sharks. I'm gonna go back to sharks. And I'm like, whales. It's like a kid in a shiny things.
Right. So over in Mozambique, do you guys get a lot of different sea life of like large pelagics and megafauna and coral reef? You got a lot of diversity over there?
Yeah, so we've got sharks. Unfortunately, we don't see that many alive. I've seen one hammerhead alive, but I've seen like over 100 killed in the catches here. So unfortunately, there's a lot of like dead sharks. But from our fisheries data, we know that we've got like hammerheads and bulls and tigers and zebras and all your like normal reef sharks as well, and then we've got like whale sharks, and we have whales, humpback whales, migratory humpback whales. Then we have 2 species of dolphins, humpbacks and common bottlenose, and then we've got our reefs aren't as healthy as they should be for this region, and that's actually something that we're working a project that I'm just getting off the ground in the middle of. I was writing a proposal for it today, and that's looking at, because we've basically got a lack of large excavators on our reefs, by that I mean herbivores, and we think that might be through selective fishing pressure, because people here are basically limited. Illegal poaching has increased during COVID because there's no tourism, so people are more reliant on fish as a protein source, and people going out to fish are limited to the shallow reefs, basically. So they're fishing residential fish and herbivorous fish. So we don't have any large herbivores left on the reef, and large herbivores are crucial for reef health. So we're in the midst of developing a project with the fishermen here, transitioning people over to kayak fishing, which enables them to fish pollen line in deeper waters, targeting pelagic fish, because we also have a lot of tuna and kuta and like some really nice wahoos and things like that.
Are you guys having
better food anyway?
Right. Are you guys having much success with the transition to ecotourism instead of fishing, or?
Yeah, so that's kind of something that we're working on still, because that's going to come mainly with the establishment of the marine protected area. And then we also run a swimming project as well. So that's also trying to provide people with the skills to be able to move into ecotourism, because like 95% of people can't swim here. So a little bit about that too.
Which always amazed me. There are a few islands in the Caribbean that are the same way, that the residents don't know how to swim. And that always surprises me. I can't imagine growing up by the beach and not knowing how to swim.
It's like that in many places in Asia too. It seems odd to us, as I think it's largely cultural, but we can, in terms of going into the water for pleasure and play time and things like that. It's a privilege to do that, and most
exactly
for granted. But
that's what I was going to say. It's a privilege thing, isn't it? We're from developed countries where that's just part of like growing up.
Take it for granted.
Our parents had the money, or the government provided swimming lessons or whatever it was, but we got access to those swimming lessons. Whereas here, there's no pools for people to learn in. So people have tried to learn in the sea, and then you have drownings because of the sea, and then people get scared of the sea, and there's this whole cycle of it. So.
Yep. So let's go back. So you studied at University of Cornwall. You should be sorry.
University of Southampton.
Of Southampton. Sorry. So you got your undergraduate for marine biology there. And
I did an integrated master's.
Cool. And so take us from how you grew up and loved scuba diving, and you're following your dreams. You got your marine biology degree. What led you to Mozambique from the UK? How did you make that transition?
Well, it's definitely something that I never thought I didn't plan this. This is just like life happening. And I guess a little bit of like luck and coincidence played into it. I always thought, I don't know if you guys have seen that movie, the one where they look for treasure, Into the Blue. Where they're just diving and looking for treasure. I kind of envisaged that being my life.
One of my favorite movies.
I think loads of divers think that. They're just like, oh yeah, that's what I'm going to do in my life.
We had a movie episode on a couple podcasts ago, and Dalton and I, it was both of our first pick of the things you need to watch as you're going on a dive trip.
And it was that and Fool's Gold with Matthew McConaughey.
Oh yeah. Running theme there though.
Yes. It's always about the sea, ships, and looking for treasure, right?
Exactly.
I kind of pictured like my 15-year-old me pictured my like 20, 30-year-old me quite differently. But life happened. So I went to uni, I did an integrated master's. So that means that I basically didn't have to reapply for the master's year. You just kind of go straight through. And I was on the last year of when the UK government tripled the fees. So for me, that was the cheapest option to do a master's. I did 4 years basically, including the master's. And at the end of I did my dive master at the end of my first year. When I went to uni, I basically decided that I wanted to make myself as employable as possible so that by the time I left uni, I could get a job. So at the end of my first year, I did my dive masters. At the end of my second year, I did a photography internship. And that was in Mozambique, that was here in this bay. And when I was doing that internship, I witnessed my first shark killing. So these fishermen were bringing this shark from the nets, and it was still alive, but they were taking the fins off, and it was all like a really traumatic experience. Obviously, I knew about this because I'd spent my youth basically researching it and learning about it and watching documentaries. But obviously, it's completely different watching it on the screen to actually witnessing it in real life, in real time. So I then was super angry really for the first 2 days, and I was livid at the fishermen. I hated them. And then I kind of was unpacking those feelings and realized that the reason that the fishermen were killing the sharks was actually for the shark fin trade, and they were shipping the fins off. So actually it wasn't the fishermen that was the problem. They were just trying to make a living for their family.
Well, it's tough. We've had this conversation about poaching in Africa on safaris and the shark fin trade, and it's tough when you're sitting in America or the UK or Western civilization, and it's easy to bitch about it and complain about it when all you're seeing are the documentaries and seeing, oh, well, so-and-so's son went and killed a leopard in Africa and paid, $10,000, $20,000 to hunt this animal. We're looking at it from our situation. But if you put yourself in the situation of the village or the people that they're just trying to feed their family, and $10,000 goes a long way to buying a lot of food and supplies for their village. So
exactly. And the fishermen here are getting paid a fraction of what the fins are going for on the Hong Kong market. They're just the middlemen basically. They're just getting the product for the fishermen, and they have for the market, and they have no education around sustainability. Education levels here. People leave school around the age of 13, and there's about 50% literacy rate, 75% of women. There is zero education around sustainability. And so it's just not something that is known about or thought about. So as far as a lot of the fishermen here are concerned, the sea is an infinite resource and it will never run out. So you've also got to kind of appreciate the background that you come from. And I'm very privileged that I come from a well-educated background, and I've received training in this kind of area, but fishermen here have not. But they have way more experience with the culture here and the area and what kind of species are here. So it's that appreciating each other's point of view and knowledge. I saw these. Sorry, back to the story. I saw these sharks being killed, and I basically realised that it was the shark fin trade that was the problem, and I wanted to work out, because obviously it was really upsetting seeing those sharks killed. But if it's just those sharks killed, it's upsetting. It's not an ecological problem. But if it's more than just a couple of sharks, then you're looking at a wider ecosystem problem. So I wanted to research the shark fin trade here and how bad and widespread it was, what the possible effects for the marine ecosystem was, and for the community as well, because obviously sharks are an apex predator, so removal of them can lead to trophic cascades and collapse of the fisheries here, which ultimately affects the humans. So I just wanted to basically learn more about it. So that's why I did my master's thesis on that. So I came out here for the first time at the end of my second year on the internship, then came back in the following year, entered my third year with research assistants, collected 4 months of fisheries data with the shark fishermen, learning about the shark fin trade, and then started the organisation the following year. So while I was writing up my master's thesis, I was getting the exact results you would think in terms of the sustainability of the shark fin trade. So not sustainable. But I couldn't publish my paper because I didn't have enough data to get my stats significant. So I needed more data, and I thought about ways I could do that and make it financially feasible and all the rest of it. And I needed like a team of people. So I started the organisation because I was looking at basically different ways to accomplish things. And NGO work seemed like it would be a good way to set something up. And then it expanded rapidly because I found it in the November. So the school year here runs, the university year here runs from September through to like June. So I found it in the November, and then I had like a good long chunk of my academic year where I could, yes, write my master's thesis up. But my master's thesis was like intrinsically linked with the NGO that I wanted to run. So then I was also looking at like how to run an NGO, what long-lasting change looks like, what initiatives have succeeded, what initiatives have failed, what might be the best way to like run something. So then it became apparent that education was really key. So the education section was born like pretty much immediately. And we needed a multi-pronged approach with the government, because the government isn't just going to start banning shark finning, because there's a lot of money in it. There has to be financial incentives. So I changed the mission from just stopping the shark fin trade to establishing a marine protected area here as a whole. And that would encompass the shark fin trade, but also offer protection for like the coral reefs and other species here. So that's how kind of Love the Oceans came about.
Very cool.
Nice.
So let's do a primer here for a lot of our listeners may not even know where in the world Mozambique is. So why don't you tell everyone, give a sense for where Mozambique is and where within Mozambique that you set up shop and your organization is based.
So Moz is opposite Madagascar, East Coast Africa, above South Africa, below Tanzania. And we are in Inhambane, which is a southern province of Mozambique. Mozambique's huge. It's a 2,705 kilometer coastline, so it's gigantic. I think the stat was if you unwrapped the coastline of England, which is an island, well, the UK, which is an island, 3 times, that would be the length of Mozambique. So it's long. So we're in one of the southern parts of Mozambique, and I'm in Jangame district, which is within Inhambane. So Maputo is the capital of Mozambique, and if you basically drive north for 8 hours and then turn right and drive for an hour, you'll get to me.
Right on. Very cool.
So a little out of the way.
Yeah.
Nice.
But there is an airport that's like 45 minutes from our base, so it's not too bad.
And most people, if they're going, let's talk about tourism a little bit before we get into people that come to Mozambique, what percentage of tourisms are from other parts of Africa versus international?
I think our bay, like I can't really speak for the whole of Mozambique, but I know for our area, it's largely South African tourism because of how difficult it is to get around. So most lodges in Mozambique are self-catering, which means you need a car to be able to drive to the shops and things like that. So often, and there's not often car rentals either around. So it's difficult to actually get hold of a car. And so a lot of people drive up from South Africa. There were some people that came through from, I think it was Kenya or something the other day, that drove a long old drive, which was pretty impressive. It's like, I'd probably say like 80 to 90% South African, and then the rest is probably European, visitor wise, not necessarily tourism, because we have volunteers which aren't really tourists, but we probably, in our bay, we bring in a large chunk of Europeans and Americans, I don't think there's many other Europeans and American tourists or visitors that come to this kind of area.
And it's considered a pretty safe place to travel to these days. Is that right?
Yeah, so on the .gov advice for the UK and on the American government travel advice, they do say don't go to Cabo Delgado, which is the province that literally borders Tanzania. So it's as far north as you can get, which is thousands of kilometers away from here. It's like saying that there's an issue in Germany when you're in the UK. Mm-hmm. So it's bloody miles away. But if you're traveling to India, then that's absolutely safe and sound. I live in a short and I can
getting a little scratchy your feedback.
Yeah, hold on just for a second. You've been good up until just right now. It got the audio just got staticky. Let's see what happens.
Tell me when it's good.
We'll let you know. You still sound like you're snorkeling now. Let's see. Go ahead. Go ahead. A little bit.
Now?
Yes. Yeah.
That's not too bad.
I think we're good. So, okay.
Better?
Yes, better. Much better. Yes. All right. So now we got a sense of place. You've you established yourself there, and you're basically. Let's talk now about from the desire to form this organization to actually, the grassroots of getting it started, and talk about, kind of the process there and any fun stories or struggles that, starting any business is tough enough, but starting something like this is on one hand, you've got this sense of passion. You're rolling what you love and what you see as good for humanity and yourself and what you're passionate about too. Okay, now I have to deal with local governments, I'm assuming, and get the community involved. So I'm fascinated. So there's got to be some great stories here. So whatever comes to mind, tell us what it's like. How you starting this? How you started Love the Oceans?
So right at the start, I gave myself, because I was 21 when I founded it, so I didn't know how to run a company. I had very little experience. I'd had part-time jobs when I was at uni and at school, but I'd never properly been out in the workforce because I'd been in education the whole time since education. So I didn't really have a extensive knowledge of contracts, of any legalities, insurance, like basic stuff like that. I still I need my travel insurance, but I didn't know what a company needed and all of that kind of stuff. So I gave myself, I call it a 3-day panic period, where there'd be some big thing that needed to happen. So making the website live, or registering the company, or opening a bank account. And it was something that had to happen to move forward. But it was something that made me kind of go it's real, it's happening. I have to do it. And I'd freak out, and I'd give myself 3 days to freak out, and then I'd come around to it and be okay, I've got to do that to move forward. And I still do it now to an extent. A couple of times when I talk to our team and people are oh, we should do this, you need to do this, you need to appear on this or go and do this. And I'm no, I can't do that. And then 3 days later I'll be okay, that was a good idea.
Nice.
So that was kind of the initial stages. Then coming out here, I met Pascal, who's our community outreach manager, in the first month of running the organisation, probably even the first 2 weeks. He was the brother of a friend of mine, and he is born and raised in Mozambique, but speaks really good English. So obviously that helps in terms of bonding, but also just helping generally communication with the project and stuff. And I kind of explained my thoughts around, at that time it was very shark focused, so my thoughts around the shark problem and what possibly could be done. And then I was talking about what he thinks could work, and basically we just had these conversations around conservation and sustainability, and then he just jumped in head first. So he taught in the local schools, taught some lessons. We developed a syllabus with the elders in the community that supplements the national curriculum for 10 to 13-year-olds. And it's like basic biology, basic geography, and then some like marine conservation tied into it. So like, what is ecotourism, and what are the pros and cons of the marine protected area, what sustainable fishing looks like. So he taught that in the schools, and he organised community meetings, which meant that right from the start I could sit with the elders in the community, which is basically like the mayors of each community, and have discussions around like what they saw, what they wanted, what priorities in the community were, things like that, which was incredibly useful because they have obviously a huge amount of insight, and they can connect you to whoever they think that you need to be connected with. And so we kind of just evolved from there.
So how hard was it to get Pascal to convince him that he should take on and join the cause, so to speak? From, I think he's featured on your video on your website, right?
Yeah,
which is a great video. Link to it, but I got to imagine it. There took some. Maybe was he already predisposed to, because he had, from what he had seen, or how did those conversations with him go to finally get to teach him to we need to get in line and protect our oceans and do something about this?
Well, I mean, we couldn't have been more lucky with Pascal. Like, a little luck coming into contact with him. Like, it was literally like my friend who's a skipper. I was chatting with him, and I was like, "Oh, I really want to
Oh, hang on for a second. We lost your audio. Let's.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I can hear you now. Can you hear me
now?
now?
Still hear me now?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. I have no idea what's going on. I'm not even touching it.
That's okay.
Anyway.
I mean, you can, if you want to try, before we go on, we can take a quick break here. If you want to try, we can try singing it. If you think the issue of the audio is your headphones, if you want to try
I can try it without.
We can see if it's better or worse and go from there. Let's give it a second. Okay, now say something.
Is that better?
Yeah.
Actually,
I think so.
Less crackly.
Let's do this. Yeah, let's stick with that and go from there. So let me start back.
I don't have to have these things in my ear anymore.
Yeah. We'll have to, in the meantime, get you some other headphones, find a way to get some other headphones to Mozambique for you in the meantime. But
Bluetooth system here, that would be a challenge.
Yeah, exactly. Believe me, I can't get stuff from one state to another here, and it takes months. So
I guess we'll just have to bring them in person.
Yeah, exactly. So let's start that section over again. So tell us about getting Pascal to, convincing him to stop. I think he was a fisherman. Is that right? Or am I remember?
He was actually working. Well, he was almost a part-time fisherman, just in terms of subsistence fishing. But we were just really lucky because he was the brother of the skipper of a boat that I was on a regular basis. So I was just chatting to my friend, the skipper, and said we're looking for someone. I'm looking, because I was at the time I didn't have any colleagues or anything.
It's just you at the time.
And I was like, I'm looking to work with the local community, and can you introduce me to someone that speaks decent English and wouldn't mind working in this kind of line of work? And he was like, oh, my brother, he speaks great English. Pascal's the same age as me. He was working in one of the resort's gardens at the time. Unemployment rate's around 70% here. So a job's a job, anyone will take it. So obviously offering him a job, he was like, yes.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure he would have minded what that job was. But it was pretty much pure luck that he is so amazing, to be quite honest. He's just really quick, he's really intelligent, he's really open-minded, and probably open-minded is one of the biggest advantages, because he's just, I think also because he's young and he's we've had some very frank conversations where we have a rule where we're 100% honest all the time. And so we've talked about race and racism, because there's a very big history of racism in the area, because obviously it's an ex-Portuguese colony and you had apartheid South Africa right next door.
Yep.
So we've had a lot of conversations, just very frank conversations about race, and like experiences, past experiences, what he hopes the future will look like, what his hopes and dreams are for his family, all of that kind of stuff. And I think having that kind of like relationship where you can just talk without fear of, you know, upsetting anyone, and he knows how valuable he is. Like I've said to him, we have a policy in our organization where we always compliment each other. If someone does a good job, you say that they've done a good job because you want them to know that they're appreciated.
Yeah, sure.
So he knows that he's ace at what he does. And we're also, like, especially at the beginning, not so much now because we are stable and will be around for many years to come, but at the beginning I was pretty obsessed with being able to provide him with a skill set so that if anything happened to Love the Oceans, he would still be able to walk into another job with a skill set. So with Pal, it was like pretty easy. It was just discussions. I remember talking about conservation and sustainability, and he'd never come across these concepts before. So we were just talking about what sustainable fishing looks like. And I was talking about netting and things like that. And then he went home and he changed the way he fished. And then he talked to his family about it, and they changed the way they fish. And families are very big here. So he's one of 20 brothers and he has 700 cousins. So just that one conversation of just a chilled out, just friends having a conversation about sustainability changed the way that 700 people fish. And that was kind of like, was the first time that I saw the impact that community work can have through essentially investing in one individual, whether that be time or money, and then that person basically being like a super trainer for the rest of the community and being able to spread that
especially
message.
when you can give them an alternative.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah.
I think that's the big thing.
And it being culturally integrated as well, because it's important to remember that, like, I'm a foreigner, I'm from the UK, I don't originate from Mozambique. And so it's important that you don't go to a country with your values ingrained in you and then be like, this is the way that you should run it. You have to appreciate where you're coming from, where other people are coming from, and then having a culturally integrated change is a lot more effective and a lot more long-term.
So the organization has grown quite a bit from just you and Pascal at the beginning, right? So tell us what it's grown into from its roots now. Where are you at now? How many members do you have? How many people are involved on a regular basis?
And how long have you been going?
So we're in I'm not sure you can call it a season, but we're in our 6th season at the moment. And so Andrea, our director, she actually volunteered the first year that I ever ran volunteer programs. And then she stuck around. So she came on board in the September 2015. So she's been on board a while now. Which was a huge help because her business, her line of work previously had been in the corporate world. So she had a lot more experience of contracts and actual running a business. So the kind of business side of the charity and the NGO, that was where she could help, and I had zero skills. So that was incredibly helpful. And then we grew our volunteer base and our staff base. So the first year we functioned, we had 26 volunteers. I ran 2 programs, 13 people on each program. And then from there we just built. So now we host about, I think last year we hosted 76 people. And we had a staff base of 5 or 6 people. So we're still really small staff base. This year we were meant to have our biggest year yet, which obviously COVID completely messed up. And we were going to have 2 interns this year, which would have been amazing because they can go through our data and our samples and help us keep on top of everything. But we'll see what happens next year. Hopefully that will happen next year. So yeah, we've grown quite a bit.
Do you choose from season to season what programs you're going to focus on, or does it remain pretty constant, or is there just a slow evolution from season to season on all different programs that you guys focus on?
So we have, like, I call it a program, but they're basically a schedule which we rotate volunteers around. So that's it includes like all of the areas of research and community outreach we do, because we just need people to help with everything. And then if we develop a new project, then we'll roll that into the program that the volunteers help out with. So generally I'll take an area that we work on and we'll bring it up to best practice that year. Every year we pick like one and then we bring it up to best practice. So we've done that with our swimming project, and we've done that with our ocean trash was last year. So each year we pick something and we're going to make that the best that it can physically.
Let's go through that. Tell us about I know I've watched the video and you go through some of the cool projects you've worked on, but let's for our listeners go through some of the major programs that you guys do.
Yeah, so we have our fisheries research, which obviously stems from the shark research, which I initially did for my master's. And that's now on all general fisheries. So everything that's caught and all the different types of methods of fishing, because then we can analyse what types are the most sustainable. Then we have our coral reef research, which is looking at basically proving that what we have is worth protecting and that it needs to be protected. And then we have our ocean trash, which is looking at the different types of trash we have washing up on the shore, what can be done with it, what can be done to reduce it, all of that kind of stuff. Then we have our humpback whale research, which is a focus on bioacoustics. So it's looking at song evolution of the humpback whales in the area, and you can use that to track migration as well. So we work with a few different NGOs around Africa on that. And then we also have our megafauna research, which is whale sharks and manta rays, and that's population count. So that's identifying individuals, which we also do with the humpback whales, but with the manta rays and whale sharks, we also do that. And we're also noting location and all the sightings data on them, really. So building an individual database on that. And then, so that's all the research that we do. Then we do
just a little bit.
Just keep going. This is crazy. Yeah.
So we have, well, I say two. We actually probably have 3 community projects. The 4th is kind of born right now. So the first is teaching basic marine resource management, which I spoke about at the start. Mm-hmm. But basically that's working with 10 to 13-year-olds, teaching an agreed syllabus, which supplements the national curriculum. And that's around like ecotourism and sustainable fishing, sustainability in general, what that looks like, as well as whales and turtles and sharks and what's on the kids' doorsteps, what they can expect to see in the ocean. And then we have our swimming project, which is basically when we have a beginner, we have an intermediate, and we have an advanced class. There's a very strong riptide in our bay, so there's been a lot of drownings over the years. We've had 13 drownings in the last 2 years.
Wow.
So our swimming project is obviously to reduce loss of life, but also because basically everyone's just terrified of the ocean here because they can't swim, and anyone that goes into the water drowns because of the riptide. So there's just fear of the ocean, which obviously isn't helping conservation.
Now, do you guys have a protected area that you can teach people to swim?
No, so there's no lifeguard. There's nothing here. So what we do is we use one of the pools at one of the local resorts, Pleasure Bay, and they let us use their pool for free. And then we transition our advanced students into open water using safety floats and all the rest of it in an area that's got like a barrier reef, so it's a little bit more protected. There's still currents and stuff, but it's a bit safer than just the open ocean. And once they get to their advanced level, they're offered the opportunity to become what we call an ocean conservation champion, an OCC. And an OCC basically gets the opportunity to have English lessons sponsored, swimming instructor lessons, dive training, surf training, skipper training, all of those kind of things, whatever they want within the ecotourism space. And that creates jobs, but in exchange, they also become ambassadors in their local community for conservation. So they run their own conservation workshops which obviously ensures culturally integrated conservation changes. And then on top of that, we also have our alternative livelihoods, which is basically developing different ways of making a living that supplements income and relieves pressure on fishing. So that's like aquaponics and sustainable honey harvesting and agriculture and things like that. And that's a whole, like each one of those is basically pilot projects where we apply for funding and then run those with the hope that we have success, and then that can be replicated through the community. So yeah, it's a range. And then the fourth one we're starting at the moment with the fishing project, which we spoke about earlier.
So it sounds like you should really have like a few hundred people on staff to run all this stuff. That's amazing.
It's a lot. I mean, I've just given up sleep and social life for the last.
Oh my gosh.
Fine. Didn't need it anyway.
Now, I saw on your website that you guys do bring in volunteers that can teach swimming or have other skill sets to help you guys, or?
Yeah. So we have a range of programs that basically suit anyone, whatever their kind of interest is within marine conservation. So we have our 5-week program, which is for students that are studying a related subject at uni or equivalent, or have graduated. And that's kind of like the bulk of our research is done by those volunteers. So all of that research is used to lobby the government for legislation change, push through new legislation, eventually establish that marine protected area. So that research is really, really important, and really the crux of the organisation lays in that. Then we have our 3-week program, which is for just anyone. So anyone 18 and over can join that program, and they get basic training in marine conservation and then help out with all the different areas that we work in. And they get their dive qualification and things like that too. And then we have our Photographers Without Borders is the photography company that we're partnered with, and they are an amazing NGO that basically run a photography workshop with a ridiculously qualified photographer that's usually like, you know, National Geographic, all the rest of it, and they run a workshop for 10 days. We get the money from that workshop, which helps our NGO, but they also document all of the work that we do. So my job is basically like driving around the photographers and telling them the backstory of everything that we do and saying any upcoming campaigns that we need media created for. And we get to use all the media that they create, which is amazing. And the photographers obviously get taught by the insanely talented instructor that they have. And that's more about storytelling. And then we have a swimming project, which is for people that are swimming instructors and want to help out, because we have 2 weeks in August, which is the winter holidays here, where no one goes to school. So we can just get through the kids, like so many children in that 2 weeks. We usually get through around 200 kids from like zero to hero workshop of swimming.
Nice.
So yeah, that's basically anything. Then we take like schools and dive groups and things like that. So if it's group travel, then we'll take people for that too. We've also got some SUP groups next year.
Okay.
Really
And
cool.
what about people like, so I have a buddy of mine that was a collegiate swimmer, like a professional swimmer competitively. If he wanted to come spend a month teaching kids how to swim, or someone like Todd and myself, who are, I'm a scuba instructor and a boat captain, as well as we're both underwater photographers, if we wanted to come over and spend, 4 weeks or 8 weeks volunteering, do you guys have programs for just your people who are professionals in that industry and want to help out?
Yeah, if they've got like a specific skill set, then that's definitely something we want to utilize. So the only issue with the swimming is that we only do that once a week outside of those school holidays. So that's why we run the swimming program in the August, because that's when we can teach every day. Otherwise, we can only teach Saturdays, because that's when the kids are off school. And parents
So you kind of mentioned it within. Oh, sorry. You kind of mentioned within Photographers Without Borders, but that's got to be one place where you can generate revenue. But you have a lot of programs going on, so I got to imagine there's a lot of financial need. So how have you been going about fundraising for the organization?
So all of those programs, we charge a fee to participate. So that covers the food and the accommodation and any like associated costs. So if it's a diving program, it covers like the diving and everything like that. And then any kind of profit made from that, we're a non-profit, so it just goes straight into all the programs that we're running. So it can go into whatever is deemed most necessary at the time. So like, for instance, next year I want to get a ocean trash, pelagic ocean trash project off the ground, where we basically take a zooplankton net and you put it through the water column by the side of the boat, and you can analyze how much trash is actually floating in the water column, and looking at the microplastics, and then you can pull that together with our megafauna data, because we know we have X number of filter feeders through manta rays and whale sharks, and then you can guesstimate or you can estimate scientifically the amount plastic that they're likely to be consuming on like a daily basis. So that kind of project where we can't get funding for it, or we don't have time to apply for a grant or whatever, it goes into that cost. And then also it covers our overheads, which is a horrible word and everyone hates the word overhead. Be funded, but it unfortunately is a necessary part of
course, it's just the reality of things,
the car and things like that. My rent here and stuff, because we rent, we don't have our own place here yet. We want to, and we're saving up to buy a patch of land eventually, but land is pretty expensive on this coastline, so we've got to save up, and at the moment we rent our accommodation and our food and all the rest of it, which is why we have to charge on the programs, because we just don't have money to be covering those costs ourselves.
So do you guys have is it just like a small building, a small resort?
Yeah, it's a resort, so it's not necessarily that small, I guess. So this is a 2-bed house that I'm in, a 2-bedroom house, so you can have 2 beds in each one. If you really wanted to, you could have bunk beds, so you could have 4 beds in each room, but there's only 1 toilet, so it'd be 8 people toilet. But resorts, I've realised that for people not in Mozambique, resort has like
different word
luxury
connotation.
Right.
People tend to think like, oh, resorts, it's going to be like 5 our resort is rustic accommodation. So it's my walls here are makuti, which is like made of palm leaf, and that's like pretty standard around here. So it's not like you've got running water, you've got electricity most of the time, although we had a massive power cut last night, which was very annoying. But I saw it on the
Instagram thing. It looked like you were out in the dark. Yeah.
So annoying. And the power went off about 10 minutes before I had to do an Instagram live. So I was just sat there with a head tilt, like, this is Africa. So yeah, we've got hot water and electricity most of the time. So obviously not complaining at all. And I love where we are, and we have like the most amazing beach line, and obviously the diving is incredible. And if I go for a run in the mornings, I know that no one is going to be on the beach, like it's just empty, which is, I mean, for me, I would much rather stay in a place that wasn't 5-star but have that 5-star environment, because you literally got like the best. For me, this is as good as it gets. And
now, is the coastline along Mozambique, is it pretty much beach the whole time, or does it get into some cliffs and mountainous type?
There's some mountainous areas in the north, but I've never been, and I don't think they're coastal. I think they're more like inland. But mostly it's literally like you Google white sandy beaches with palm trees, and that's what it looks
Nothing
like.
wrong with that.
That sounds pretty good.
Nothing wrong with that.
It sounds pretty good. So since we are a dive podcast, talk about like which of these programs you have that you regularly do that actually require or involve people actually scuba diving to help do some projects, if any?
So all of the projects apart from all of the programs apart from the swimming program obviously require diving as part of it, although the photographer's one, if you don't want to dive, you don't have to. And we do kind of say that with all of them, if you really don't want to dive or you're uncomfortable diving for some reason, then that's fine, we can work around it. But for our 5-week program and our 3-week program, coral reef research is part of it, so diving is really a necessity. So for our 5-week program, we have PADI open water as a prerequisite. For our 3-week program, we include the training in the program, because obviously being able to dive is an
kind of important.
research. Yeah, it's out on a regular basis, doing surveys. So we'll do like 2 dives a day, and you'll do maybe 1 diving day a week. So it's not like super intensive diving, unless like you want to stay longer and specialize in that area, or you have a particular like you only have interest in that. But generally what we find is people are interested in all of the areas that we work in, because it is marine conservation. It does kind of like tie together, and it's all kind of dependent on each other. So but then obviously the weekends is just packed full of diving, because everyone's like, I want to go to the deep reefs, I want to go see everything.
Of course.
Shallow reefs here, so it's nice having the weekends to go and explore.
So on the bay that you're in, about how many resorts or compounds, for lack of a better word, that how many like dive resorts are there? Is there a lot of are you guys like the only ecotourism place, or is there a Ritz down the beach?
I wish I go there for money. We are the dive resort, so we have a dive center and a resort, and I'm doing my free diving instructing at the moment, so we can do free diving soon, and I'm the only SUP instructor in the bay. So it's a tiny area. We're the only dive resort, and then there's one other dive center, and there's a few, like most of the housing here, most of the like holiday housing is like privately owned villas that people kind of rent out, and you cater for yourself, and it's a villa, so you do everything yourself. So I think ours is the only, I'm trying to think, ours is the only place that has like a restaurant and a place to sleep and a dive center all in one.
Nice.
Is someone else physically, like, are you partnered with someone that's actually physically running the resort operations, or is that like, I would assume that's the case. You don't have to worry about.
I figure your plate's kind of full as it is.
Exactly. Or don't worry about maintaining the boats and hotel, and resorts.
So our partners are called Jay's Pro Dive Center and Palm Resort. Palm Resort is like the whole place. I tend to refer to it as Jay's. Jay is the guy that owns it and runs it, and his wife Renelle, and then they've got a couple of partners as well. So they kind of run the whole resort side of it. So we just partner with them, and then it's a pretty open relationship. So we talk a lot about like the future, what they want in their resort in the future, what would be useful for us in terms of facilities. And it's a great relationship. They're lovely people. Awesome. So it's very like a family orientated resort, which is something that we like, because we run programs with kids from age 16 to people aged 76. So it's like we need that body of people that are capable of looking after anyone at any age and take them diving and teach them how to dive. And Jay's amazing with kids, so when we have like even younger kids, parents with kids.
I was going to ask if you guys have I know you said 16, but do you have kids that come in younger? I know Patty's 10 years old to do the Bubble Maker program, right? Something like that.
So the resort generally does. So they have everyone coming in. So there's been like kids, and then there's slightly older kids. There's kids that are too young, so they just go on the boat and they can't like actually go in the water or anything.
Right.
And then on our actual programs, we don't have a program for families, but we have the capabilities if a family wants to come out and help out, then they can. It's a bit difficult during like July and August, because that's when we have a lot of stuff going on. But outside of that time, then we have the ability and the staff to be able to have families out here, and they can kind of dip in and dip out of what they want to partake in.
And July and August, I assume that's your guys' season?
Yeah, so that's the British summer holidays. So that's when school groups come out, if we have like school groups, and then we have like university dive groups that come out sometimes, and we have Photographers Without Borders. They run their program usually in August, and then obviously we have the swimming program that has to run in August. So it's quite full on, and then that whole time we're also running our like 5-week and our 3-week program, and that's the 5-week program is most popular with university students. Right. So their summer holidays are also like June through to September,
Right.
to July.
And that's that's your guys' winter, right? You guys are below the equator, Mozambique.
Yeah. That's our winter.
Yeah.
I mean,
not that there's a winter,
yeah.
but what does the what's the weather?
British summer. So
yeah, what's the weather like? What's the weather like there for you guys generally?
Today it was hot. It was horrible hot. It was like I was sweating today. But usually so my favorite season is July and August. Like that is by far my favorite time of the year. It's cool enough that you want to sleep under the covers at night, and it's hot enough during the day that you'll get burnt if you don't put sun cream on, and you'll you sweat, like you're hot. So it's a nice warm day, but it's not like you're melting. It's about 26 to 28 during the day.
Okay, that's not bad.
Yeah, exactly. And then at night it drops down to like 19, 18, 19.
Yeah, so that's like 80 Fahrenheit, something like that.
Sure.
So that's she's like, sure, whatever you say, man.
You guys and your silly Fahrenheit.
You and your silly Fahrenheit, silly imperial system.
We're just going into summer now, though, so it's getting like quite a lot warmer. And the power cut last night, I was exceptionally upset because it went through the whole night, and I couldn't put my fan on, and it was quite a hot, sticky night, and I was just lying there like, why is the power off? The power is running.
So you've been running this charity for quite a while now. It's got to be extremely fulfilling for you. Are there any highlights or stories that really pop out when you think back of your time, of some of the highlights when you think back of all the things you've done, of what pops up in your mind?
Yeah, well, there's a really obvious one. So last year we got selected by the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, which is not Prince Harry anymore. It's just Harry and Meghan.
Our new neighbors here in Los Angeles, right?
Yeah. We got selected as one of 15 global grassroots forces of change, which was so I've never kept up with the celebrity world. It's just gone completely over my head. It's not something that I've never known. I'll be like, oh, it's that person from that movie. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's pretty much the extent of my knowledge of famous people.
unless it's Into the Blue or Fool's Gold, and then you know the whole cast. Yeah.
So how were they made aware of your organization? How did that come about?
So it was July last year, and as I just said, July is when we're really busy. So some days during July and August, there was one day last year that I woke up at 5:30 and I didn't sit down until 11 p.m. at night. I ate my food while I was driving to pick up the volunteers, but I didn't sit down to rest or breathe for the entire day, and I was just running everywhere, and it's just a crazy time. So I came up to the house one day to grab, I don't even have time to make food, so I was just grabbing a passion fruit for lunch. And as I walked in, my phone went off, and I looked at it, and it was a blue square, and it was on Instagram, and it said, tag your force for change, or who is your force for change, or something like that. And I saw the blue, and I thought Marine. I just thought, oh, that's some Marine organization, that's cute. And one of our followers had tagged us in it, which is why I'd got the notification. So I just quickly chucked it onto our story. I didn't register who had posted it. I had literally no idea. I just thought it was an Instagram competition because there's shitloads of them out there. And I was like, what's the harm? I'll just chuck it on our story. And at the time we had 2,000 or 3,000 followers. So I just didn't really care. I just put it on there. And I said, tag us in this. Fun. And then did not think anything more of it. A few of our followers had gone and done it, which was lovely, but I wasn't really expecting anything. And then in August, I came up to the house again, probably grabbing another passion fruit. And I really like passion fruit. And my phone just started going mental. And then I went onto our Instagram, and the notification section, it was just follow whoever followed you, and it was 1 million people followed us. And I was like,
oh my gosh,
what is happening? And I had to scroll through the notifications, and I was like, and it was Sussex Royal tagged you in a post, and I was like, who's Sussex Royal? So I clicked on it, and Duchess of Sussex, and I was like, who's that? And so I googled it. This is how bad I am.
And where are you from again?
I was like, oh, that's lovely. That's so great. And so I sent a message on our staff chat, because we have a WhatsApp chat, because everyone's always on different areas of the base during the day. And I said, like, guys, this has happened. This is so cool. And everyone was like, ah. And then we had like a beer that night to celebrate. And then it was like a week later, we were running a fundraiser, because the where we teach the kids to swim, it's great, and we love Pleasure Bay, and they're lovely people for letting us use the resort for free, but we do have to transfer the kids, and it's like a half-hour drive, and it seriously limits the number of kids we can teach, because I can only fit 40 kids on a truck with me, whereas if we had a pool that was in the community, we could teach a lot more kids.
Right. So you guys don't have a pool on premises?
No. So, well, we have a dive pool, but it's tiny and it's deep, so I would never want to teach in a car like that, asking for
throw them in.
So we were at the time fundraising for a community pool, to build a community pool, and we just set up a Just Giving page, and we'd posted about it a few times on our Instagram, but we didn't realize that Megan was keeping tabs on the charities that they'd selected, which obviously I should have realized, but we had a lot going on, and you know, and clearly I'm not clued up on this stuff. And then I got a Instagram message that was like, what are the best contact details to contact you guys off the Sussex Rural account? And I just said, like, I'm in Mozambique, so I don't know, internet might not be great, so probably just contact our director, because she's in London at the moment. And Andrea got a call, and it was the receptionist or the secretary or whoever it is that, you know, lines up the calls. And the woman was like, oh, I have the Duchess of Sussex on the phone for you. And Andrea thought it was a joke, so she replied, yeah, right, I'll call you back.
Oh no.
Like, no, I've actually got the Duchess of Sussex on the phone for you. And Andrea was, what? And she was in the middle of the meeting, and like literally like 20 people in the room, and she like put the phone down, and she was like, guys, get out of the meeting. And then Megan rung Andrea and just was ringing to say that she loved the work that we did, and she donated to our page, and I checked the page, and she just shelled out $5,000 off the bat. For like no, like she hadn't even put her name, like she just put Archie HMW, which is Mountbatten Windsor. Now I know this. And it was a donation, like Archie's first philanthropic donation, and she was doing it because they were teaching Archie to swim at the time, and she wanted to, you know, help out and stuff. Right. So she just rang to say like how much she appreciated the work we did and stuff, and I was gutted because I should have taken that call, but I told them to. So yeah, she donated, and it was really amazing. So I think that was a big point for us, because obviously it boosted our social media presence, and there was some like media associated with that. We had a pro bono fundraiser come on board. We had a pro bono PR woman come on board. So we got like a lot of people like wanting their skills for us, which was pretty incredible to be able to have that kind of expertise. Because when my phone blew up, I have a friend who runs I basically built a network of young women that all founded organizations, and I had a friend who runs a very successful swimsuit company, and she'd had a lot of press recently through like newspapers and stuff, so she knows how to handle it a bit more. And she sent me a Facebook message and was like, I've just seen what's happened, you should do this, this and this. And some of it was really basic stuff that I should have thought of, but I just didn't have any experience. Like, we're a tiny NGO, and we went from having literally no media experience to a spotlight, like a global spotlight. Sussex Royal had 9.3 million followers at the time, so it was just like this, like, and we didn't really know what to do or how to handle it and how to harness it, because we also were like, this is great, and this will probably only happen, this kind of thing only happens once, right? So you've got to like really take advantage of it happening. So it was like great for us having that recognition, and I think for me as well, like having it, that transition from like a pipe dream at university where I was just trying to save the sharks, to having it like internationally recognized like that, was just such a like huge transition. And for my mum has always been like, oh yeah, when are you going to come home and like get a real job? And I think when I could ring my folks and be like, oh, by the way, the royal family.
The royal family said I'm doing a great job, Mom.
Now imagine if you had taken the call from the Duchess, what you could have said to your mom at that point, right?
Yeah, but knowing the internet would have crashed.
Exactly. Exactly.
So really, really quick, while we're on the topic of donations and stuff, is there a way for our listeners to be able to donate, $5, $5,000, whatever it is that they can, $2, $1, is there a place, whether it be a GoFundMe page or something, a link from your website or?
Yeah, so we've got lovetheoceans.org/donate. Okay. That is our donation page. So if you go there is an option just to donate through PayPal, and you can donate that way. If you want to donate and you want like a tax relief because it's a charity and you want that write-off, then I'd get in contact with us and you can do a direct bank transfer and we can provide you with a receipt and stuff. And that also stops PayPal taking their little percentage off the top. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but obviously just that section. We also have a Just Giving page that's linked directly to the charity, so you can donate through the Just Giving page, and if you want to set up your own fundraiser, you can do that, and that goes directly to the charity. You can also adopt a whale shark on our website. So we have, of our whale sharks here, we've named a few. So we have Wolfgang, Nemo, Munchkin, Dougie, Pergo, and a couple of others, Cocoa Bean.
Is Munchkin the biggest of the whale sharks? Is it named Munchkin out of irony by any chance?
Yeah, so he does eat a lot, and I actually named him for my baby cousin. She was born, and we all call her Munchkin. So
nice. Now, do you guys do a tagging program with the whale sharks to keep track of them, or anything like that?
No, we'd love to, but tags are bloody expensive, and we have no funding at the moment. So it's something that we have. We have like a 10-year strategy document where we outline like everything that we would love to do in the next 10 years, and tagging is one of them, but it's just so expensive that we can't. Like some of the tags that we're looking at, they're like 20 grand a tag, so you've got like 5 tags and you're at 100 grand already, and you haven't even like, that's 5 sharks, and that's if they attach, and that's if they come off and you can recover them and all of the rest of it. So it's really crazy money when it comes to tagging, something that in the future hopefully
Fair enough.
Very cool. Any other good stories from now we got the Duke and Duchess of Sussex taking care of? Any other great stories from running your organization that just stick out in your mind?
Yeah, so I got an email recently from a volunteer that she was not a like 19-year-old volunteer. I think she's in her 30s. Late 30s, and she volunteered with us, and she came on our 3-week program. She didn't have a background in marine biology at all, but she was thinking of a career change and wanted to basically see if it was something that she did care about as much as she thought she did. So she came on our 3-week program to get a bit more experience, and she did great. She was lovely, and I love having volunteers that have that thirst for knowledge, because it's just such a like lovely thing to be able to sit with someone. And I'm sure you guys have it when you meet other divers and stuff. It's just like you can talk for hours about stuff that other people would be like, why are you talking about that? That's so boring.
Exactly.
So she was a dream to have on site, and then she actually went back to university, and she's now studying marine biology, and I'm helping her with her dissertation, and she's using some of our data for her dissertation.
Very cool.
So that's awesome. So lovely when you can make those kind of impacts on people's lives. And then I think a big step for us last year was so basically we have with our community projects, we have a kind of a deal with the community where we teach the basic marine resource management, and we help with construction. So basically the government made a rule here where if you can get each school up to 10 classrooms, they would establish the first ever high school in the area, which would mean education up to the age of 18, which is obviously amazing. And our work so far had been so far we'd been sponsoring around 1,500 kids free education because the schools had stopped charging parents maintenance fees because we were doing all the maintenance on the classrooms and stuff. But then we started building classrooms on the request from the elders, and we have a local building team that do everything like that, and we fundraise for that, and then plug all of that money into the community locally to try and create jobs and investment and all the rest of it. And our sponsors, we have a local lodge here that sponsors that work, Catalina Lodge, and they very kindly agreed to just plug in a shitload of money all at once. So it's 12 grand that they donated last year, which enabled us to get the schools up to 10 classrooms each, which means the first ever high school can be made in the area, which is obviously a massive step for us. So that's also been a really like rewarding and just a good like milestone for us, I think.
Yeah, that's a pretty big win for sure.
Exactly.
For sure. So going back a little bit, you said that you took a semester of photography while you were at university. Is that correct?
So I did an internship.
Okay. And have you had quite a good underwater photography journey so far, or how about tell us a little bit about that?
So I actually, my full extent of camera usage up to the age of about 19 was like point and shoot shit cameras that I had a camera when I did my DM when I was 19 that was low level, just about can work out what's been taken.
Kodak disposable underwater.
But obviously technology has come on a lot in the last 10 years. So 10 years ago, your low level underwater cameras were dodgy.
Yes, say the least.
So,
technology has come a long way for sure.
Yeah, exactly. So I kind of started with that, where I just like, that was just me like playing around and capturing silly photos of things that were all rubbish because I wasn't shooting with a strobe or anything like that. And then I took this internship and I learned more about underwater photography. I got into underwater photography, although I was looking back because I have a portfolio that I have to keep posting on my Instagram and keep, creating content and stuff. So I was looking back at some old photos to see if I can use any of them. Some of them are absolutely terrible. I was looking back at some of the first ones I took and I was like, oh my goodness.
I think we've all done that. Look back and been like, I took that? That's just crap.
Yeah, exactly. Especially wide angle. Like wide angle is so difficult with the positioning of strobes and stuff. And until you kind of get your head around it, it can be pretty terrible, the results.
Learning curve is steep.
Yeah, exactly. And I remember basically avoiding wide angle for like a year because I just was terrible at it and couldn't do it. And then I kind of realized that if I wanted to work as a photographer, I needed to be able to see wide angle. Most dive operators around the world, if you're going to shoot a promo shoot for them, it's going to be wide angle. Like macro is lovely, but when they're selling dive trips, they want to sell photos of sharks and they want to sell photos of mantas and stuff. People don't tend to care about the smaller stuff as much in terms of a marketing tool.
Yeah, macro ends up being like B-roll.
Exactly. So I started with, my first camera was a Nikon D300, and then I looked for casings for that just to like entry level, and they had been discontinued. So I could spend a shitload of money on a casing, but I wouldn't be able to get like repairs done properly and like spare parts easily and things like that. So I was like, okay, no, I'm not going to do that. So I wanted like a medium priced camera. I couldn't afford a lot at the time, so I got a Nikon D7100 with Aquatica second-hand housing and in on strobes, and I've still got that rig, believe it or not.
And it still takes great pictures.
So I'm pretty meticulous about taking care of it, although my servicer would say not. So I send it in for a service every year, and I get angry. Basically, almost every year now I get an angry call from my servicer. So I live in a beach hut in Mozambique. My casing is literally on the bed next to me. It's covered in a capilano, which is like a local skirt here. There's no sand-free places. The floor is sand. Like you can't, when you're prepping kit, you can't be in a sand-free environment. My bed is the most sand-free it gets, which is why I prepped my on my bed. But my servicer rang me and he was like, I've just taken out all the buttons and I could turn the camera housing on its side and pour a little pile of sand out.
Sand, yeah.
I was like, I'm so sorry. I'm trying my best. But yeah, so I've had that rig since 2014. So it's been 6 years, which is pretty damn good for an underwater rig.
It is.
Yeah.
I'm at the point it's been seriously MacGyvered. So at one point I got a job in Australia and I stuck a Corona bottle cap on the end of the in-on strobe with some silicone gel filling the air cap. And there's half a Sharpie for one of the washers. So it's been like pretty MacGyvered over the years. And last year I did a photography job in Egypt where there was some pretty large leaks, and I actually got used to, so before that I'd been like crazy cautious about moisture inside the Egypt. I got used to diving with a partial flood. That was just normality. I was on a liverboard, so I couldn't get a spare. I had what I had, and I literally had like this much water in my housing every single dive I did. And
oh my gosh.
Normal. So I'd get out from the dive, I'd have to rinse my camera, rinse the actual camera, rinse inside my housing, all of that kind of stuff, which was pretty crazy for me. So that was when I was like, okay, I really need to think about upgrading this rig.
I think we need to start you a GoFundMe page for
a new camera, for new housing, or at least some new O-rings. Something.
Well, it turned out that the O-rings hadn't settled after I'd like serviced the housing, so I had to just drop off the back of the boat to like 20, because it was the pressure. It was fine when it was 5 meters, but as soon as you went down like to 20 meters, which was shit, because obviously you're testing it in like a bathtub.
Right,
exactly.
That doesn't matter. It's when you're down deep.
Yep.
So I ended up at one point in the first like couple of days when I was still working out what was going wrong, I dropped just off the back of the boat while everyone was on a dive, and I just said to the divers, I was like, to the guys on the boat, I was just like, I'm literally going to be at the end of this rope 20 meters down off the back of the boat, pressing the buttons. So I just had to, literally, like, I was just hovering, just jamming all the buttons in as much as I could for like 20 minutes, 20 meters at depth, and that actually settled the O-rings, which I'd never had that experience before. That was, and that actually almost solved the actual problem. So yeah,
I like
that was
almost solved.
There's still some leakage, like a tiny bit, but it's so much
improved.
And like at one point when I first took it down, before I'd done any of that, I took the camera out and I just had the wide angle dome port on so I could see inside better, and it was literally like a stream of water coming from one of the buttons, and I was like, like hyperventilating underwater, like, stop it. I learned a lot on that Liverpool trip, and then I actually used the same rig. I had to replace the camera, but now, because that was 6 years ago and technology comes on so much in that time, the camera, I could get a second-hand replacement camera for less than £200. Like, is nothing in the camera world. So I just replaced the actual body of the camera and then shot with the same rig in Indonesia this year, and it was all right. There were a couple of leakages, but I think because I also do, I've kind of expanded. Last year I expanded into terrestrial photography more, and working with luxury brands and doing interiors and stuff like that. Because travel. So like last year I went around Botswana basically and just shot wildlife and interiors for a bunch of luxury lodges, which allowed me to do the tourist thing without the price tag, for getting to stay in amazing places.
That's great.
And to do that kind of like high level stuff, I do need a better camera body. So I'm going to upgrade soon, hopefully to the D850. And I don't know what housing, because it will be whatever I can afford.
Whatever you can get.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, you got the Icolite, which is a couple of grand, and then you've got Aquatica and Subel and Nauticam that are up at like $5,000. Yeah, so it's I
love Aquatica. Like I cannot say enough good about Aquatica. Like they are amazing.
Have you approached Aquatica about buying directly from them and seeing if they'll give you a discount?
Yeah, I was thinking about doing something like that, or trying to get like some kind of sponsorship through them or something like that. So I think that will be my next port of call. But I've also got to replace my strobes. This is the problem with underwater photography. It's so expensive. So
it's not just underwater photography.
It's cheap.
It's both. I do commercial photography as well as underwater photography, and it's just not. There's nothing cheap about photography at all.
Yeah, it's a very expensive passion for sure. How did you make that transition and get like noticed by the other resorts in Africa to come and shoot shoot for the lodges out there? How did they find you?
The question: How did I get the jobs?
Yeah.
So that was basically me scattergunning. Loads of different places, because I knew that I wanted to go there. I knew I had a car, which meant I could go, and I was with my friend who is a Instagram influencer. She's got a significant social following, and she also writes a blog and stuff like that. So it was kind of like a pairing up and allowing us to. She's like one of my best mates. We've been mates since we were 11, so it was as common sense for us basically, because she wanted to come visit me, and she'd been to Morocco, but for me Morocco is not Africa.
Yeah, it's its own thing.
So different. She'd never been to like Southern Africa before, and I was like, oh, well, if you're coming, we've got to do this right. So we went all around Botswana. We were meant to go through Zimbabwe, but there were some shootings on the border, so we decided not to go. And it was actually lucky, because the mountain range that we would have been in, there was a massive cyclone that hit Mozambique, and it actually cut off that entire mountain range from water and electricity for like 4 days. So
good. Good choice there.
We didn't go that way.
So speaking of that, if you're coming, whatever, most of us here in the States and other places around the world aren't as familiar with some of the more famous places to go in Africa to go diving. Maybe tell us some of your experiences that you've dove elsewhere down in Africa that are just some of the most memorable dive spots that you've had in the past.
Obviously, before I go on this list, our place is the best.
Yes,
of course.
Of course.
I would.
It's now at the top of my bucket list.
Yeah.
But let's start there, because again, guys need to watch the video. Like, you get whale watching, whale sharks, all sorts of other megafauna, charismatic megafauna, as we say. So.
And between dives, you can go out on stand-up paddle boards, and then like the other day, I think it was on Sunday, we went out, and the mother and calf pairs here are super chill, so we just got to like 10 meters away from this calf, and then the calf started coming towards me, and I'm like, don't come too close, because I have my phone out. I was like, I don't want water on my phone. I'm trying to like paddle. So there's some pretty like spectacular, especially the whales. Some pretty spectacular experiences. But there are other places in Africa to dive. So Ponta d'Ora is one of the popular places in Mozambique, and that's really, really far south. We call it the Diet Mozambique, like Diet Coke, because it's like basically South Africa. It's not really Mozambique. It's just on the Mozambique side of the border. Then if you cross over, then you've got Sodwana Bay, and that's got some great diving there in South Africa. Go further down, and you've got Alibor Shoals.
And are these known for their reef life primarily, these last couple of places you mentioned?
So Ponta is known for their dolphins, I would say. And then Sodwana is known for, incredible reefs and sharks. And they also have some turtles as well, which is pretty cool. Then Durban, Alibor Shoals is one of the best dives I've ever done in my life. One of my friends runs a dive centre there. Alibor Shoals Adventures. Okay. That's pretty incredible. So it's Durban area, and the launching alone is quite something, because you have to go out from an estuary. And then you have raggy tooth sharks in huge numbers. So
Really?
there's a cathedral, which is like basically a rock formation with the top kind of off it, so you have light coming down and running light, and then you have these raggies that just swim around inside this cave. And there's like, when I was down there, it must have been upwards of like 100 ragged sharks in this cave. And they're just minding their own business. They don't care that you're there. We also saw a hammerhead on that dive, and an eagle ray, and a couple of stingrays. Like, it's really, really diverse. Then we surfaced, and I was like, oh my god, that was the best dive ever. And my friend was like, that was really average. And I was like, whoa, don't ruin this for me. And so from my understanding, like, I've seen some incredible footage because he posts on Facebook all the time, and I'm so jealous, although I can't be that jealous living here. But they get the sardine run there, so it's a great place for people to do the sardine run, which is like I think it's one of the 7 natural wonders of the world. And they get super pods of dolphins. So some of Emil's footage on Facebook, he's like driving his boat because he's a skipper as well, and he's driving the dive boat, and he's just got his phone and he's just recording, and there's like dolphins as far as the eye can see jumping out the water. So it's pretty like insane, and obviously they have the whales coming up and all the rest of it during the sardine run, so it's pretty incredible bait pools and stuff. So that's definitely bucket list material. And Emil himself, who runs the dive shop, is incredible. He works against illegal poaching in the area, so he goes out at night and he gets all the illegal nets that are in the rivers and gets rid of them and all the rest of it. So he's quite the ocean warrior.
That's awesome.
And then as you travel down the coast, if you drive right round, you can get to like Cape Town, cold water diving, great white sharks, kelp forests, completely different environment, but equally as magical. You've got pajama sharks and a couple of other species that are within kind of the kelp forest themselves, which are incredible to see. The kelp forest, I'd never dived kelp until I'd gone to Cape Town, and that was insane, like just so
surreal,
different. Like,
right? It is.
Yeah, it's just such a different
It's almost like swimming through a forest.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I mean, South Africa is a beautiful country. You've got like incredible mountain ranges like Table Mountain and the Drakensberg, and then right next to it you've got incredible oceans to explore. So it's pretty spectacular. Then if you go the opposite direction, you go up north into Tanzania, you've got Zanzibar and all of that kind of area, and Mafia Island, which is renowned for its whale sharks. So that's also pretty incredible to see. Over the other side, you've got the Namibian Dolphin Project in Namibia. That's pretty gorgeous too. There's lots around Southern Africa.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And what about headed north? I know you said that did you say you did a job in Egypt?
Yeah.
Did you shoot in the Red Sea?
I forget that Egypt and Morocco and stuff are
it
was really
big continent.
in Egypt, and everyone was like, Africa, and I was like, I know it's geographically part of Africa, but it doesn't feel like Africa to me because
it's Africa light.
Yeah, but it's also probably the one place Americans know about diving that technically you could say is, Africa is diving the Red Sea and doing it. But anyways, tell us. So tell us how did you enjoy diving the Red Sea? Was it all it was cracked up to be in your experience?
Yeah, I mean, pretty spectacular. So for me, previously I'd done a job in Cairns in the on the Outer Great Barrier Reef, Osprey Reef, that kind of area, and that was the best coral I'd come across to that point. And it probably still is, to be fair, it is probably the best coral that I've seen. But Red Sea was, well, apart from Indonesia, obviously, in January, but Red Sea was spectacular. I wasn't expecting it. I wasn't expecting such amazing coral formations. I'd been told about the Red Sea and how beautiful it was, and that it was definitely bucket list. And for somewhere that's not that far from the UK as well, like it was, I think, a 5-hour flight, so it was like not even that hard to get to.
Yeah,
exactly. I went to Hurghada, and then I stayed overnight in a hotel, which was quite a horror story because TripAdvisor had sold me a night in this hotel which had shut down. So booking online, don't just trust blindly the booking sites. Google it and make sure that they exist.
Email and make sure they're around. I've had a couple of stories like that.
Yeah. So Egypt, it was traumatic in the first 24 hours, and then obviously we got on the boat, and as you do with liveaboards, you just settle in and everything gets going. Obviously I was preoccupied. I was pretty anxious for the first 3 days with my camera housing and trying to get it working, not leaking, and making sure my electronics weren't going to fail on me. But the diving itself was beautiful. We had we skipped it's called, what's it called? It's called it's an island formation. I can't remember the name of the island, but it's famous for its oceanic white tips.
Okay.
And we had to skip that because there'd been a couple of attacks. But when I was talking to the dive operators, they thought that there could have been chumming involved and irresponsible tourism.
Probably.
Obviously, don't just,
Probably.
Yeah.
Sharks are generally.
Yeah.
Who was the liveaboard that you dove with, by the way?
Pardon?
What was the liveaboard that you were on?
It was a Dive Pro liveaboards. And they're great. They were like medium price range. So if I'd paid to do it, it would have been about £900 per person. And that was, I want to say 9 days.
Wow,
I think it was 9 days.
That's not bad.
Days.
Yeah, it's not bad at all.
Well.
And all your dives included. So it was like pretty decent pricing.
Yeah.
And then in Indonesia, that was mermaid liveaboards, and they were pretty.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, I've dove mermaid. Did you dive Komodo or Raja Ampat when you're there? Yeah, cool.
I want to go back and do Komodo, but I'm also terrified because I get quite seasick, and they're saying that Komodo crossing is.
It's rough. So it's funny. So we dove. On my honeymoon, we went to. We were on the Mermaid to do Komodo, and the Mermaid is a great boat. I don't know if they still have the same Thai chef on there, but the food was amazing. But the beds, the mattress they used to have on there were so saggy. It ended up being a good thing because even though the boat was rocking so much during the crossing, it kept us in the middle. So it worked out to make the crossing. And my wife normally gets very seasick, but it was actually much better that we had a subpar mattress. But when we went to quote them to go back to Raja Ampat several years later, we had asked, "Did you change the mattresses yet?" And they said yes, they had. But it was a we liked the Mermaid. It was a great experience. So
nice.
Yeah, that was spectacular diving. Like I haven't dived anywhere with such consistent, decent viz, decent megaphone. Like it was like, oh yeah, we're gonna go dive with mantis now, and I was like, yeah, but what are the chances? And they were like, guaranteed.
Yeah,
and I was like, okay, that's great. That's a very rare.
We went to the Maldives, and one of the big things there was supposed to be the.
Mantas and whale
sharks. Thank you, Todd. For some reason, mantas just slipped my mind. I don't know how that could ever happen. But it's supposed to be mantas and whale sharks. And that was the big draw for us going. And we got there. We only saw mantas one day, and we only saw 2. And we didn't see any whale sharks. And it was...
Yeah,
it's
Dalton's still seething from it, as you can tell.
I'm still bitter.
But
be like the place to.
Come on, internet. Come on, internet. Come on back.
It was, well, I guess it depends on what you're classifying as good. Was it good compared to California? Yes.
Yeah.
Was it good? I think we probably had 60 to 80 feet.
Yeah, it was. It didn't compare to like diving in Raja Ampat or anything like that. We still had a great time. It's funny that we have the podcast episode right before this one. Dalton and I reminisced about our Maldives experience. So it's bittersweet.
So we opened the wound again.
Yeah. But you'll have to definitely do Komodo. It's worth it. The crossing isn't that bad if at all. You just have to know that like the water temperature changes. Like you can dive in a 3 mil for part of it. And then after you get around the backside of doing Komodo, then you need to be in a much warmer wetsuit there. So there's a big variation in water temperature, but different than Raja Ampat, the change of type of diversity of the terrain that you're in is very significant. And the type of sea life that's around changes quite a bit from that throughout the 7 days of that dive trip. So I would definitely go back to Komodo in a heartbeat.
Yeah. And really quick, while we were talking about water temperature in Viz, what's the water temperature in Viz like in Mozambique?
I don't think it's the same level as Maldives.
Sure, still.
It's about in the winter, so now / a month ago, it was about 22, 23 degrees bottom temperature, so you want a 5 mil.
Okay.
71 and a half.
Like 72.
Yeah, 72.
Yeah. And then in the summer, you're looking at like 28 degrees.
So about
nice.
80.
Yeah, 82. That's really warm.
But as the temperature drops, the whales follow the temperature drop. So during like May, when the temperature's dropping, basically every dive is an indicator of how soon the whales will arrive. If your computer's still saying like 25 degrees, then you know that they're not going to be there in the next few weeks. But you know that like in maybe 3 weeks' time, you'll do another dive and the temperature will have dropped to 22, 23. Sometimes it will go lower and you're like, okay, the whale's going to be here any day.
Nice. And what about visibility?
Viz changes hugely. So I actually did a dive down south. One of my friends works further south from here, about 3 hours, and it was a shocking Viz. Like, I swam into a rock, I couldn't see it. Like, it was
oh, Jesus. Is this how your camera started flooding? Because you went into a rock?
Here we're luckier, I don't know why, but our like shelf formation or whatever means that our Viz is generally better. So we have anywhere, I mean, you do get rubbish days, obviously, and same as you get rubbish days anywhere. So occasionally you have like really terrible Viz, but really you're looking at Viz being 15, I'd say is average, and then past that is obviously good, and then below that it's rare. I haven't dived recently when we've had less than 15 meters. Not really.
That's not bad. 45 feet.
Usually it's pretty decent. It's good enough that if you see something you can see it swim fast kind of thing. Whereas if you're obviously in terrible Viz, you could miss something just being on the. Although the whales are really loud, like they're really vocal, and
awesome.
The rib cage will vibrate with the drumming. So the males are the ones that sing, and then the females are the ones that make like drumming and moaning sounds with the calves. And that drumming is so bloody loud. It literally like vibrates the bones in your bodies. Occasionally it can get really irritating when a calf is making that noise for like 50 minutes of repetitive. Usually it's a phrase that's repeated. So it will just be like over and over and over and over, and you're like, oh, okay.
Now you say that you say irritated now, it can be annoying now. The first time you heard it, you're probably like, oh my God, I could never get tired of that.
Yeah, definitely. And then after a while, you're like, shush, change your tune.
Shush, whale.
Exactly.
Stop with the drumming.
So that's like really incredible. And the drumming, usually you can tell when they're quite close. And that's probably the most infuriating thing about diving here is you always feel like the whales are just on the edge of your Viz line, or like just beneath it. So you're always my diving here. I don't dive like it anywhere else in the world. Like here, I'm like looking. Yeah, nice reef, and then I'm like, where are the whales? Where are the whales? And I'm like looking around, like trying to do 360s, rolling over while I'm diving. Like you're just trying to constantly check around you, because here, like the mantas have been known to follow dive groups. So often, like I always look behind, and like a couple of times, like I took my best friend visited a few years ago, and she'd never dived before, and I took her on a dive. And obviously, because she's a good friend of mine and she was new to diving, I was checking on her like every friggin' 20 seconds, just checking that she was. And I turned around to check if she was okay. There was a manta behind her head, and I'm like,
oh my gosh, that's awesome.
Right.
And she's like, oh.
But yeah, I was about to say her reaction must have been priceless, like turning around and just.
Yeah.
So it's pretty good. We're very lucky with what we have here, and our viz isn't too bad, and our temperature's not too bad either. We have some people that choose to dive in 7 mils, but I definitely don't. I have a wetsuit it's actually a surf suit, but it's a 4-5. So, and that's fine for me. Although I want to dive Galapagos soon, and I've been told that Galapagos you definitely need a 7 mil. So I think
no, you need to get Todd's wetsuit. He has a 7 mil with a 5 mil vest.
Well, the water temperature is cold in Los Angeles, so
it is. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you look like the Michelin Man waddling around with that thing.
Yeah, that's one of those things you put it on right before you go in the water. You don't.
Yeah.
You don't wear it very long.
But yeah, those water temperatures sound quite reasonable. It's very similar to Hawaii for us, is the low 70s in Fahrenheit. Sorry. So not definitely if you have a better chance of seeing whales and stuff like that, I'd deal with the colder water temperatures for sure. It'd be awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. So do you have Todd said that you had uploaded a few images. Do you have a favorite image that you've taken in your underwater career?
Favorite image that I've taken.
Is it a screensaver? Is it wallpaper for?
She's like, I have to pick one.
Have you taken any split shot over under where half of the water, normally you have the water on the bottom, but it's really the water inside the housing versus, and then the top half is the water outside. You can just take split shots in a city street, right? Half of it's underwater.
I've got a couple of over and unders that I like. I actually have a shot that I took my camera out of the housing in Indonesia that I love, of like the top side. So I actually came up from the dive about 10 minutes early, nipped back to the boat, took the camera out, and then came back on the tether pretended to pick up the rest of the divers. And I was just shooting because it what Raj is like. It's insane. Like it's like you're in Jurassic Park with these amazing rock formations that are super green and the water's turquoise, and it's just unbelievably picturesque. So I actually love that photo. I have it as my background on my laptop because it's just reminds
That's what I said.
Nice.
There you go.
Nice.
But I also have photos from snowy Scotland as my background that I love.
That's good too.
Nothing wrong with that.
But that probably, and then I've got a shot of a manta from Raja this year, and I've got a Napoleon wrasse from Egypt last year that I love.
Nice.
I took on fisheye, so it's like right up and close. It was one of those fish that just wants to stay with you the whole dive. So I turned around and it was right there, and I managed to grab it.
That's awesome.
So
you have to share some of those with us so we can post them.
I've been cruising through your Instagram, and I see a black and white turtle from the bottom with a sunball above it. That'd look kind of nice.
That's probably Raja,
okay.
I'd imagine.
And then it looks like there is a cuttlefish, like purple and yellow.
Oh yeah, that was night diving.
Raja. Yeah, that one's really cool.
That was on a night dive. It drove around the entire dive. So it was the only thing I got photos of.
Well, you got a great one of it.
Don, you want to share, since you're looking at Instagram, you want to share the screen? Just in case we have some folks watching on YouTube, they can enjoy the view.
I've got quite a lot of free diving photos from here because I've just been free diving a lot recently, and I love free diving, and that actually showcases the best viz here. A little
squiddy guy, I like that too. That's beautiful.
Yeah, they got some great color. Great job.
That was a good dive. So that's like not really that edited at all either. That was just how he was.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, obviously they're drawn to the light during the night dives, and they're just so curious, and it's just cool. All their behaviors are fascinating.
That's a great job. And then
I like the anemone fish one's nice. Yeah. A lot of great stuff. We've got surf pictures.
Yeah, this guy's nice. Speaking of surfing, while we're looking at these, do you have is there much surfing in Mozambique?
Yeah, so there's quite good surfing here. So I attempt to surf, but I tend to sup more than I surf. I really enjoy supping, and supping as well. You can free dive. Yeah, that's Raja.
Yeah.
You can free dive off boards. So Red Paddle Co. sponsored our organisation some sup boards, so we could do some whale research during COVID.
Nice.
And we decided to go out and start freediving, and then that's also why I've decided to do my freediving instructors, because I think it's just that melanistic manta from Raja, that's
Scroll back up. Yeah, I've seen that guy too. Is that Missoula, I assume? It's usually where it's usually where the big manta dives are, usually all around Missoula. So
it was melanistic mantas. I had my first experience in North Stradbroke Island in Australia. I didn't have my camera with me, which is really rare these days, and there was this melanistic manta, and I'd never seen one before, and it'd always been on my bucket list, and that's Egypt.
That's cool.
And it was really incredible to see that, and when I remember snapping that shot and then being like, yes, that's the photo I wanted.
So you got some great aerial photos from Raja too, it looks like. So did you have a drone with you?
No, I didn't actually. There was an aerial that was from Botswana. That was from a helicopter.
Oh, it was Botswana. Sorry about that.
Yeah. And some of these are some of the that one of the coral reefs is Egypt.
That's
beautiful. Nice.
Amazing.
And then there's the flooded camera, but just below it.
And there were actually the cave in Egypt were pretty incredible too. I didn't really think that that wasn't something I'd kind of counted on, the underwater caves.
I'm assuming this is the Napoleon rest that you...
Yes, that's Napoleon rest.
Napoleon Dynamite, perfect.
Napoleon Dynamite, yeah.
So they just hang out with you during the dive? They tend to be very curious about divers and
very chilled out. I had loads of photos of him because he just didn't care.
That's so cool.
Pretty incredible. Some of these are from...
Awesome. There's some great shots.
Great stuff. Yeah, really, really great stuff. So, for those listening and not seeing the stuff we're going through, check out our show notes. We'll definitely post some of Francesca's great photos that we just talked about, or if you happen to be using Overcast podcast player, it'll be on chapter art. But definitely check them out. I mean, she's got some great safari photos too. It looks like some great wildlife.
Great topside.
What were you shooting with for the safari? Did you have a longer lens that you typically shot with?
Yeah, I do. I need to remember exactly what it is. I only use it like once a year when I'm doing safari stuff. So it's I would say a 400 to 800. Does that sound right for a Nikon lens?
Could be.
And it's not the best. I don't think it's Nikon. It was one of the cheaper brands,
like Sigma or something like that.
Yeah.
And it's it's not quite what I want it to be, unfortunately. But
sorry, it looks like it did the job. You still have some great photos posted.
Some great photos.
Yeah. And as with all camera stuff, you get what you pay for. So I wasn't going to pay top end, so I wasn't going to get the top end images, but that's fine. And it's also to do with the camera body that I'm using, and that's well out of date, and I need to get a new camera body. So my faces will be better in the future.
Yeah, well, they look amazing already. So,
well, my friend that I was traveling around Botswana with is Canon through and through. So we were literally arguing the entire time about which was better, Nikon or Canon.
It's I tell people it doesn't matter if it's Canon, Sony, or Nikon, but Nikon's still the best.
Yeah, Dalton and I are on that opposite end too. Dalton's a Nikon shooter and I'm Canon, but it always depends from year to year, right? The flagship. I mean,
honestly, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. All of them create a very good camera.
Like there were features of her camera that I was like, oh, that's really cool. I wish that was on this camera, but it still does the job. And as long as you know your way around your own camera, you're still gonna be able to do exactly what you want to get. So,
and ever since even the D810, like there's no question about how good the sensor was on the Nikon, the A10 and the 850, the amount of dynamic range you can get. Canon doesn't compete with that and still doesn't. But but like you said, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter as long as you have to go to the places to see the stuff first to be able to take the good photos. And as long as you have a halfway decent rig, it's more going to be about what you do with it and what you can make of it. Yeah, but exactly. like all of us photographers, we're like, well, if I only had this better lens or this better camera, it would have been so much better, right? It's just
there is some truth to the glass, though. I would spend money on glass before I spend it on a new camera.
Yep, no, I agree. I mean,
and you're always wishing that you had something slightly different on the end. Like I had my lovely safari lens on, which I shoot most of the time with, and then there's a photo on my Instagram where it's literally like this section of a lion's face. And that's because, like, for people listening, I'm just saying, like, basically 3/4 of her face, but that's it. That's all that's in the frame. It fills the entire frame. And that is because I was at a watering hole. I was lying down in a safari vehicle it was one of the vehicles where you have the side cut away. And when you're with lions, you have to stay completely still because they see you as one big animal. Yeah, that one. So they see you in the car as one big animal. So if you move, they see you as an individual, and obviously you put yourself in danger, and you ruin the shoot because you're going to have to move the car, you turn the engine on, the animals get scared and run away. So in order to get any kind of good photo, you need to position yourself and you need to stay there. So we drove around this watering hole, and we saw over the other side of the watering hole this male lion with 2 females, and I had my safari lens on and I was shooting absolutely fine. That's the male drinking the water just below, and that's from the other side of the watering hole, which was perfect distance. Loved it. It was great. And then one of the females was like, "Oh, what is that big thing over there?" and walked the entire way around the watering hole to our side. So that photo of that female is literally 4 meters away, maybe less.
Oh wow!
And I was on her height, and I was like, I can't change my
zoom out.
Take the lens off.
Get back.
I was like fully as far out as I could get, and I was just like shooting what I could. So that's why her entire face is like that's the entire frame. I just couldn't get anything else in there. So yeah, you always wish that you had, and that's a weird one.
It's always it's the same thing underwater, right? Like you always wish you had the other, like you have your wide angle set up and you're going to wish you had the macro and vice versa. That's just how it goes. But
you're shooting, blennies or little arrow crabs or something, and you turn around and there's a big manta just going, hi.
Oh no, you're looking for mannas, and that's where they have 10 pygmy seahorses. And,
right, yeah. It's always one of the two.
What are you going to do? That's just how it goes. But that's still a beautiful photo. That the close-up that you're quote unquote complaining about is a gorgeous shot. Like how much...
It's amazing, but I do wish that I had a different...
I mean, just the color. I don't know how much you did this in post versus. I mean, the eyes are just this beautiful yellow green color, and then you have that
a little bit, but it was still.
We're all artists here, right? So, but I mean, just the green and purple, and I mean, it's just it was just lovely. It's a lovely shot, and so
it really is. So one thing that we like to do with our guests before we wrap this up is we do this thing, call it the dive brief. It's 5 rapid questions, and it's just a quick answer. For example, the first one is, what is your favorite dive snack? Between dives, after a dive.
Toast.
Toast.
Right. Todd?
Yeah.
What is your favorite piece of dive gear?
My camera? Can I say that?
Yes, you can.
You can say that. Absolutely. If you could choose somewhere to dive that you haven't been, where would it be? Galapagos. Nice.
I think we already covered this, but your favorite post-dive drink is?
Tea.
Okay.
Tea. Right. Not passion fruit.
Not passion fruit.
No, the passion fruit is literally like an actual passion fruit.
Yeah.
It's not.
Right, but for your post-dive snack, it's toast, not passion fruit.
Passion fruit's fairly acidic, and when I come up from a dive, I want I'm just
something to clean the palate.
I got you.
Yeah.
And what's your favorite sea animal?
Sharks.
Sharks. I could have guessed that one.
And the most frustrating thing about diving?
That I can't stay down longer.
That's a good one. I like that one.
That's great. That's awesome.
I was waiting for it to be the whale singing underwater, but
I'll put up with that for a bit longer.
Nice. Right on. Well, this has been an absolute blast. I've enjoyed it. Again, it's like we were talking earlier. I could probably talk for another 2 hours to you about diving and the ocean and conservation and all that.
It's lovely being on and chatting to you guys.
But we'll definitely have to have you on again. There's no doubt about that. And I also want to make sure that we do what we can to help love the oceans and help support that. If we can get members, our listeners to send some donations your guys' way. I'm definitely going to be logging on as soon as we wrap up here and throw a little bit of dough your guys' way.
So why don't we kind of, I know we talked about it earlier, but once you hit it up, as we're wrapping up, tell everyone again where they can find more information about your organization and where they can find you guys online.
And find you online as well.
Yeah.
So they can find Love the Oceans online at lovetheoceans.org. You can donate on lovetheoceans.org/donate, and you can adopt a whale shark on lovetheoceans.org/adopt. And you can also find us on Instagram. We're trying to build our Instagram following, so any follows are more than welcome. That's at Love the Oceans. That's the same handle for Twitter, and then our Facebook handle is at Love the Oceans Organization. So you can check all of that out there. We also do have a YouTube channel, which you can check out too. That's just at Love the Oceans. And you can check out my photography, which is at Francesca Trotman Photography on Instagram, and then my website, which I don't keep up to date, but I should, is just francescatrotman.co.uk. So yeah, that's all of our kind of handles and ways of getting in contact. Our email is info@lovetheoceans.org. So if you want to contact me directly or the organisation, then you can contact us through that as well. And I'm pretty good. I have my email on my phone, so I'll pick it up pretty quickly.
Awesome.
Excellent.
And we'll put all of those links in the show notes and on the blog as well.
Yeah, go check it out, guys. Check out the website. There's about a 10-15 minute video that kind of gives you a real sense of place and what the organization is about, the charity is about. And you get to meet so many great people there and see all the wonderful wildlife. So please check it out, guys. It's a great watch, and you'll get to learn lots of great information, and it's a really great cause. So thanks again, Francesca, for joining us. It's been a pleasure talking with you, and hopefully we get to do it again real soon.
Yep, thanks a lot. Really appreciate it. It was a great time.
Bye.
Bye.